grab a popcorn if you may. If it's dinner you are in front, that's in front of you, it's all the same. A cup of coffee, a cup of tea, wherever the weather may be in your side, get them and sit tight, everyone. We're about to get talking, but before we get talking, here are some of your political roundup stories.
The Supreme Court has dismissed the appeal filed by the governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Bola Ajayi, following the formal withdrawal of his appeal. Explaining his decision, the PDP candidate said he withdrew the case after due consultation with members of the party. He extended his heartfelt wishes to Governor Aiyedatiwa and pledged to work towards the development of the state. The resident electoral commissioner for the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Aminu Idris, is urging residents of the nation's capital to take advantage of the ongoing continuous voter registration to be able to vote in the area council elections scheduled for early next year. Mr. Aminu made the call during a sensitization exercise in Abuja. He assured FCT residents of the readiness of the electoral umpire to ensure everyone who desires to participate in the electoral process is properly captured, stating that all initial challenges have now been surmounted. Civil society organizations are urging Nigerians to acquaint themselves with the knowledge and understanding of the Electoral Act to be able to understand the duties of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. This call was made during a town hall on electoral reforms organized by the Peering Advocacy and Advancement Center in Africa, held in Ilorin, the Kwara State capital. And finally, thousands of loyalists of former Zamfara Central Governor Kabiru Marafa have distanced themselves from his decision to leave the All Progressives Congress APC, declaring their continued support for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the ruling party APC. Speaking on behalf of the group, the former administrative secretary of the Marafa structure in Zamfara State, Abdul Kadir Mijinyawa, says the loyalists have resolved to remain in the party and support President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Let's bring you the biggest news as far as Nigeria's politics is concerned today. And it's the news coming from the presidential villa. Today, we now know that President Bola Tinubu has announced the end of the state of emergency in Rivers State 6 months after it was declared in response to a constitutional and political deadlock. In a nationwide broadcast, the president recorded how governance in the state had come to a complete halt in March of this year, with the governor and the House of Assembly at loggerheads, critical state asset under threat, and even the Supreme Court affirming that Rivers State had no functioning government. President Tinubu explains that invoking Section 305 of the 1999 Constitution was a painful but necessary step to restoring order, leading to the suspension of the governor, his deputy, and lawmakers for half a year now, with what he described as a groundswell of new understanding among Rivers stakeholders. The president says there was no reason to extend the emergency by a single day beyond its original timeline. Effective midnight, the governor, deputy governor, and state assembly members are to resume office, marking what President Tinubu called, quote, a remarkable achievement for peace and democracy, while thanking the National Assembly, traditional leaders, and Rivers citizens for their support. The president also reminded leaders across the country that democracy thrives only in an atmosphere of peace, order, and good governance. Let me quickly remind everyone what the timeline looks like in the past 6 months, where the state of emergency is something that has been a major event in our political and democratic life. Of course, we know that it was in March that the president made that declaration where he says that there will be a state of emergency imposed on the on Rivers State. And the following day after the pronouncement of the president, the sole administrator in the state resumed office. So it was on the 18th of March 2025 that the president declared a state of emergency, and on the 19th, Vice Admiral Ibok Ibas resumed as the administrator in Rivers State. The crisis, a lot of people will say, was triggered by the governor and House of Assembly deadlocking on several issues. There are 4 versus 21 and 27 lawmakers in a split. The Supreme Court ruling confirmed no functioning government in Rivers State from the basis of what the president has used on the legal grounds to declare the state of emergency. From March to September 2025, the governor, the deputy governor assemblies were suspended for 6 months, taking them out of the equation of governance. And the 17th of September marked the end and the expiration of the 6-month period of emergency rule, and President Tinubu announced on the same day to end a period of emergency rule on the 18th of September, expecting Governor Sim Fubara and the House of Assembly to resume their duties. A lot of things happened then. Vice Admiral Ibas is taking over in so many areas, conducted local council elections, started projects, presented budget, faced a lot of scrutiny. But legally speaking, what lessons have we learned? Would these be the end of the acrimony that we have seen in Rivers politics? Because it was the acrimonious politics that has led to the emergency rule, and the president said that has saved that state. Let me bring in quickly tonight to give us an insight Mr. Liberus Oshoma, who is a lawyer and public affairs commentator, is live for us virtually from Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Oshoma, for joining us tonight on the program.
Thank you, Shehu.
Would you say legally, constitutionally speaking, that we have learned any lesson from all of this?
I do not, legally speaking, we have not learned any lesson. And I say we have not learned any lesson because one would have expected that before now, at least the suits between the PDP governors and the federal government on the determination of Section 305 of the Constitution on whether when a state of emergency is declared, that the president has the right to vacate a democratically elected government, especially considering subsection 4 of that Section 305. If the Supreme Court had decided that one way or the other, it would have been very convenient for us to say that we have learned, legally we have learned a lesson because the law is what the court says it is. But unfortunately, that matter has been warehoused in courts, and if possible, it might become an academic exercise. So we have learned nothing. And considering the president's statement also, directed at political leaders and governors that democracies thrive under atmosphere of peace and security, one would have expected that statement should be directed especially at the president himself, because really insecurity in Nigeria today requires that we declare a state of emergency on insecurity. And truly, prosperity will thrive in a more peaceful Nigeria. So we have really not learned anything, legally speaking, because we still have this debate. Is it legal? Is it otherwise? Even though the law spells out that the president has the powers to so do. But there is a lacuna that the law has not been able to answer. The court has not been able to answer whether you can vacate democratically elected government. Because in the case of Plateau, remember, the suspended Attorney General went to court, and the Supreme Court heard that he lacks the local standing because the then military administrator, raised a preliminary objection that having been suspended, that he can no longer come to court as an Attorney General. And the court so heard that upholding that preliminary objection, that truly, if you have been suspended. So the court really didn't go into the meat of that case. And so this also, someday also we're going to have, such scenario, and then lawyers, senior advocates will be back on the burner debating the propriety or otherwise, whether the government has the power, and maybe the shoe might be on the other foot, and so that's why I said, to answer your question directly, we are really not learned anything.
So I asked that question because legally speaking, like you mentioned, it could be an academic matter, because I don't know whether the Supreme Court or the other courts will go ahead, because they meet the rest may have disappeared, and what exactly...
The action has been concluded.
Absolutely. So what exactly would the court be sitting on when the dispute has eventually evaporated? Now, the question here is, we will continue to debate it. The question again will be, can the president sit actually in a very critical oil-rich state like Rivers and look as things really fall apart? Does the president have power to declare a state of emergency? Does he have emergency power rule? Emergency rule power if, for example, is health or security related? When things were burning and the violence erupted, should we have allowed the president to allow people to be killed? Are we privy to security reports in Rivers State? The president says he has the moral duty to be able to protect the country and is backed with relevant constitutional. So there's going to be a lot of debate in any case. But when the president said, look, the peace that we have seen in Rivers State is because of the emergency rule. Do you agree with him?
I do not agree. I do not agree that it is the emergency rule that had led to the peace that we are seeing in Rivers State. Politicians have their way of doing things in Nigeria. Politics will always take the top burner. In as far as democracy is concerned in Nigeria, considering the brand of politics that we play, politics will always take the center stage. So there will always be agreement and disagreement. And for me, this is very instructive. What has happened in Rivers State also should be a pointer to our state high court judges. This idea of pandering to the government in power at the state level, once the governor is in power, the courts will not, have the effrontery to deliver judgment against that government. And we also see it play out at the national level where courts, will pander to the whims and caprices of the government at the center. So this crisis really, if the courts in Rivers State, especially the high courts in Rivers State, had been up and doing, and you have fearless judges that would be able to look the governor in the eye to say, Mr. Governor, we disagree with this step that you have taken. All of this issue of declaring a state of emergency wouldn't have even arisen, and the issue of the state of emergency, bringing peace to Rivers State, would not today would not be a statement that will be made, because if you remember, I consistently had shouted and argued until the Supreme Court agreed that Section 109 is not self-executory. There's this argument that Section 109 is self-executory, and then we now started standing law on its head that a man stole simply because the law says the penalty for stealing is 12 years imprisonment. Then there is no need to try such a person in court, or that, once you commit murder, simply because the penalty is death, then you must immediately be killed, without the pronouncement of the court. And then you have courts in Rivers State supporting that position that there is no need for the court determination of whether those members who defected or otherwise, their seats are vacant. And then you find the state high courts, dabbling into matters that they clearly do not have jurisdiction over. So when all of this happened, the impression is that once you have a governor at the state, then the courts in the state must give judgments in favor of that government. Once it's at the center. So I would largely also say this is not to take away the industry of our hardworking judges, but this attitude of pandering by judges also led to the crisis in Rivers State, because politicians will always do their thing. They will always play politics anyway. So this politics of self, politics of godfatherism. So at the end of the day, we saw how Fubara was gradually reined in, and then the piece of the graveyard that we all saw, the handshake, and then so if the governor had to wait for a declaration of a state of emergency and suspension from office for him, to know that there should be peace. And that's why the politicians will say, it is the peace that helped us to rein him in. But ordinarily, it should have been the court that should point everybody in the right direction.
Mr.
So
Shoma,
I do not think.
Yeah.
I
was asking that question in respect of whether or not, legally speaking, we've learned our lesson. And I mean, if you look at what is happening in the United States, for example, in any federal state, you see that thin line between the role of the president and the federating unit. See what's happening in Los Angeles when Trump deployed National Guard. When he did in Memphis, in fact, there are lawsuits as to whether or not, why should the American president deploy on certain issues, whether he has a power. And the federal government is saying in the United States that it cannot look on and see crises take over the street. Look at what is happening in Washington, D.C. He said he wants to take violence and criminality off the street of Washington, D.C., deploying a National Guard. So the role and the responsibility of the man who is at the helm of affairs of the country and looking on when crises erupt in a state. But politically, I've asked you the legal question, politically speaking, as our politicians, have they learned any lesson? Do you think this could be a deterrent to see that if this has happened before, another president could do it? If you misbehave in your state or politician, take the people for granted and the point that they allow violence to erupt in their state, it could be the precedents that have happened now and it could replay itself. Could it be a lesson, politically speaking?
Let me first and foremost answer the question starting from the American angle. Yeah, that has been my point, really, Shehu. Remember, when the day the state of emergency was declared, you and I were on this program, and I said, constitutionally, the president can declare a state of emergency in Rivers without having to sack the duly elected, government in that state because he was elected, with those government. But the question here is simple. You can still deploy, police to the state to maintain peace. You can deploy the DSS. You can deploy the army. They have been in Rivers in perpetuity. You can deploy them to those states to maintain peace without having to sack the democratically elected government. And then having to come to the politician, I do not think that the politicians have learned anything. Yeah, because today we've seen it happen in a PDP state because you have, a former governor who has one leg in PDP, one leg in APC. And so, to that extent, it is easy. The crisis in Rivers State is also not different from the crisis, that we see across board politically. It's just that of Rivers State, was so heightened to the extent that you have House of Assembly members that the governor did not allow to sit. In fact, at some point he claimed that he could only recognize them, by virtue of his green biro. And so that's one would have expected that if this had happened in an APC state, for example, where you have this seemingly crisis between the House of Assembly and the governor, one would have expected that if we see that and then we see a state of emergency, that's when I would say, yes, truly, there's fairness across board.
Mr. Shoma,
but I do not think that the politicians have learned anything from what had happened in Rivers State, because if at all, sorry, quickly, Shehu, if at all, we saw it happen in Plateau State, we saw it happen in Ekiti State, and then the way it was going, it was obvious that it was going to happen in Rivers. One would have expected that all the parties concerned would sheath their sword, but they walk right into it. And so power really corrupt, and absolutely power is corrupt, absolutely.
Well, we need to move quickly to some other issues on the program that we have, but there's one person that I would like to hear our voice in all this matter. She's a Rivers daughter, a former commissioner in Rivers State, and a former head of the NDDC, Ms. Ibim Seminitari, who is live for us also virtually. She's a stakeholder in the Rivers affairs. Perhaps she has a side on this matter, but it's good to see you on the program. Thank you so much for joining us. The
see
statement
you,
of the
Good
president
evening.
today, how does it come to you? It's been a 6 month of back and forth over these this emergency rule in your dear state of Rivers.
Well, I think first is that it's a breath of fresh air. As a Rivers daughter, it feels good to have my state back. So I guess midnight tonight, I would feel like a Rivers woman again. I jokingly say before now I was a member of state of emergency, but now I'm from Rivers State, starting from midnight. But just to say that it is gratifying. It's something that I think there's relief. I mean, all over Rivers State, you can feel it's palpable. The people are happy. The people are excited. The people are glad that things are hopefully getting back to normal. It didn't feel good being the only state in an entire federation that didn't have its democratically elected governor. It didn't feel good, and I'm sure that most Rivers people feel the same way.
I know that if we are to pass the blame, it will go around the room and everyone will have his share, either for the governor or for his opponent. But politically speaking, as Rivers and its people learned his lesson?
Well, when you say have Rivers and its people learned the lesson, I think that perhaps the people have been treated with a short shrift. I think that it might be unfair to the people. I don't know if the people are not just pawns in this matter, but I guess that lessons probably have been learned across board.
But so the reason why I'm asking is I sounded like a broken record when I kept asking every Rivers son or daughter who appeared in this program that are there no elders in Rivers State? This was months before, and in fact, you know what I did? I listed names of Rivers people that could salvage the situation, come into the fray, and help until this happened. So that's the reason why I'm asking. Because the state of emergency is not due to a natural cause, it's not due to any disaster, it's due to political disaster.
I like the word.
Self-inflicted.
I think that people spoke, and I think that people tried to come into the fray. I think it might be unfair to suggest that there were no elders or no elders spoke, but what happened has happened, and I think that going forward, we just want to move forward. Again, perhaps lessons have been learned across board. What is critical is that the people of Rivers State deserve to have governance, deserve to have development, deserve to enjoy the fruits of democracy just like every other state. And that, for me, is what is critical at this time.
But in all of this, you've been in public service, you've been a politician, and I know that at some point you've been on this side, you've been on that side. I mean, you know that I've covered elections in your state. Politics, election in Rivers State is like going to war. The people have bore the brunt in all of this. If you had to take a step backwards to reflect into the new season that Rivers State will be walking into, what warning would you be giving if we talk about politics and governance in Rivers State? To everyone, politicians?
I think what I would say to everyone is that we must get to that point where we remember that it should be about the people, and we put the people of Rivers State first. And we put Rivers State first. And yes, politics can be volatile, not just in Rivers State, across this country. And I know states that have probably had it worse. But what is critical is that whoever and everyone, especially those who are politicians and who say they want to serve the people, must then put the people of Rivers State first. We must, if two brothers fight, and a stranger will inherit their father's house.
Right, that sounds like a proverb, but then it's weighty and full of some wisdom there. Ibim Seminitari, former Commissioner for Information in Rivers State and former head of the NDDC. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. Go get some rest, sleep, wake up to another season you said you were expecting in Rivers State. Thank you so much, my friend Liberos Oshoma, a lawyer, giving us a legal perspective to all of this matter. Thank you so much indeed, both of you.
Thank you, Seun.
I'm excited to hear there is a possibility of 21 million jobs. Well, who is bringing it? Where does the job exist? They say it's in the agri sector, and there are incentives. I'm excited when I hear some of these things, but we need to probe it. When government says things, you need to cautiously address it. We'll be looking at the Tinubu 21 million jobs, and the Minister of Agriculture will be talking to us tonight on the program. That's after this break. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. The federal government is rolling out fresh incentives. It says it could transform Nigeria's agricultural sector and create over 21 million jobs. The Vice President, Senator Kashim Shettima, unveiled what has been the plan at the FAO's hand-in-hand investment forum in Abuja, stressing that hunger remains the great equalizer of society. The measures include reforms of irrigation, land registration, agricultural credit, and large-scale mechanization. All of these are part of President Bola Tinubu's economic agenda to boost food security and cut Nigeria's reliance on import. Vice President Shettima has assured investors that the country is open for business, pledging that Nigeria's vast arable land and untapped irrigation capacity will be harnessed to drive productivity and wealth creation in rural communities. But farmers and stakeholders are urging government to match words with action. The National President of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Kabir, has welcomed the initiatives, but warned that without full implementation, the plans risk becoming another cycle of unfulfilled promises. But let's take a listen to the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, where these 21 million jobs will be coming from.
We have re-engineered the enabling environment to attract and sustain capital by reforming policies and regulations, improving the ease of doing business through single-window platforms for land registration, strengthening our investment promotion agencies, and deepening public-private partnerships to deliver critical infrastructure. At the top of these interventions stands our National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, which has set forth ambitious but achievable targets. This blueprint seeks to lift 35 million Nigerians out of poverty, to create 21 million full-time jobs in rural and agrarian communities, and to secure national food and nutrition sufficiency through deliberate and strategic investments in agriculture. Our national investment portfolio is guided by the priorities we share under the FAO's hand-in-hand initiative. We asserted this commitment in 2023 and again in 2024 during the World.
All right. That was the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, at that event yesterday. Let's get some insight what this means. Of course, I will be showing you a chart of the food prices, inflation figures, and how things have changed in the past few months. I'm being joined by the Minister of State for Agriculture, Senator Shabi Abdullah, is live for us in our studio. Thanks so much, Honorable Minister, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Sean, for having me.
Good news, 21 million jobs. I'm happy that 21 million jobs, it was about 3 million jobs that we understand that the sector could provide. We hit, there was a moment the president declared a state of emergency on food security in Nigeria, and we thought now that farmers can go to war. But you know what has happened? Opening importation of some food items has really caused some trouble for some local farmers and food sellers who think that now their food products that they have in the market is going to be impacted because some of the imported food are even lesser in price to the locally made one. But in reality, Minister, let's begin. These 21 million jobs, is it going to be futuristic or it is here now?
Well, Shehu, thank you very much for having me. And I think when something is unveiled, it's unveiled as what we intend to achieve.
As a program?
Yes. And like the Vice President said, it's about re-engineering our policy framework, identifying priorities that will enable us to achieve this transformation. And so it's not about a one action or one policy window. It's a bouquet of policies, actions, programs, initiatives. And he has given you insight into some of these things. And so I think the bottom line is we're looking at what we can achieve. And with all of the actions being planned systematically and in an integrative way, we are convinced beyond reasonable doubt we can begin to roll in this number, because we believe with what we have as a nation, if we get it right, the number of businesses, the number of entrepreneurs who can develop in the agribusiness sector itself is what we are looking at. And I think that is why you have to have a projection, you have to have a target. You must work for something. Yeah. And right now, that is what we are working on.
So I know that the president, and I'm privy to some agreement that have been entered, especially in Brazil. A lot of investment has been agreed on. In fact, what I'm hearing that is going to happen in Ogun State, for example, is going to be massive. And how we are going to take advantage of the opportunity. Maybe it was good that we are experiencing food shortage at some point. It makes us to start thinking how we can homegrown and feed ourselves and be food sufficient enough to be able to feed ourselves. But these 21 million jobs, and I want people, because there are millions of people who don't have jobs. And so when I hear things that can benefit Nigerians, I'm asking questions on how people can tap into it. Where can people be able to tap into these opportunities? These 21 million jobs, where are they? Is it in horticulturing? Is it in food selling? Is it in direct farming? Or what exactly? Explain to us how Nigerians will be able to tap into this.
Okay, let's look at it this way. Nigeria is blessed with 73 million hectares of arable land with a lot of water bodies. The practice has been we do rainy season, dry season comes in, we go into cultural celebration, all kinds of festivals, and only a few people, a pocket of people, are involved in doing dry season farming or irrigation. Now, the Federal Ministry of Agriculture, based on the vision of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is saying, wait a minute, we cannot sustain this kind of system because it will not enable us to feed our people. So what we have evolved now is we are promoting all year-round farming, a situation where we have 12 months. We have some commodities that we'll be able to plant and harvest in maybe 60 days, some in 90 days. And we are saying that is 2 months, 3 months, depending on the various kind of crops or commodities. So we want people to take advantage of what we have as water resources, for example, and that is why he's talking about the irrigation. And where we're able to tap into these irrigation facilities, it means people will be able to have almost 3 cycles or even in some instances 4 cycles. Just this evening, we were discussing where my colleague and brother, Senator Abubakar Kyari, was talking about an opportunity we saw in terms of a new variety that you could plant and within almost 40 days, you are ready to harvest. Now, if you have such kind of varieties, it means you'll be able to even do 4 times. So these are the opportunities we are looking at. And in the past, our agriculture was dependent on rudimentary, farm implement. Now we are looking at mechanization. And that's why the Vice President was also talking about mechanization. And if you remove the drudgery in agriculture through massive mechanization, as we are currently planning, definitely these jobs will come in. Because those who are going to man the mechanization equipment, that is a pocket of job. Those who are going to be involved, for example, in maintenance of this mechanization equipment, these are different set of people. Then the farmland itself, when it is massively opened, mark you, we also have NALDA, for example. NALDA is currently also mandated to open up agricultural lands. And I think based on the National Economic Council and the directive of Mr. President, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, there is ongoing effort now for states to identify farmlands that will be developed into farm estates. So all of these things are being done concurrently, and that's why we're talking about the land registration, so that at the end of the day, if you have a land, it's possible you are not ready to farm. But under that window, somebody who is ready to farm and needs a farmland will be able to access it.
Yeah.
So the whole thing we are doing is actually to open up massive opportunities for people. And mark you, agriculture is a knowledge-driven endeavor. It's not something that you think you can just do without the knowledge. So we're also looking at how we are going to empower our farmers by training them, providing them with a lot of skills in terms of the good agricultural practices, because overall, if you are able to do this, then farmers that will have earned maybe 2 tons per hectare can now be earning 6 tons per hectare.
Minister, quick one. And I'm going to hammer more, because I want the young person who is out there, whether he's a youth service corps member or just a fresh graduate. Those, when I hear jobs, I wish, if I was an unemployed person, I would be interested in that portion.
Absolutely.
But you have not answered that question.
I'm giving you how
immediately. Where do we go? Can we go to the ministry to get these jobs, or we go back to the states? Where do we get these 21 million jobs, and remember, 35 million people will be taken out of poverty. So when government people say things, we want to hold you guys accountable. Yes. You can't just mention these figures.
Yes, but
when people don't have jobs.
Listen to this, Shehu. These jobs is not like cake that you carry and give to somebody. Is it?
But can we apply for it?
It's not something that you are going to say to apply for what? What is important is that with what we are saying, all Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians have land. Some have not gone to their land because they feel agriculture, the drudgery of agriculture has driven them away.
Are there funds that people can tap into?
These are the points we are making. For example, just recently, the 250 billion naira that was spoken about as a provision for government to say that smallholder farmers will now be supported to access this fund to do their agricultural operations. Now, you see, you've just spoken in the course of, what did they call it, this program, the program just before ours. You were talking about lesson. In all of it, we are asking about lesson. One lesson we have learned is that in the past, a lot of programs have been done. At the end of the day, where are the programs? They fizzle out. So we are not interested in...
Is this sustainable? This very one?
What we are talking about now...
5 million people out of poverty, 21 million
What we are talking
jobs.
about now is to create a sustainable, transformative process. And that is the point we are making. Irrigation. We are going to make provisions for irrigation tools, irrigation facilities. Right now, we have also identified the fact that if you allow the current irrigation system, the cost of fueling is unsustainable. So we are looking at the alternative in terms of solar-driven irrigation facilities. So the point I'm making here is that there is going to be provision for access to capital. That's why the 250 billion is
How do we apply for that capital?
That is in the works right now because we don't want to just make it an all-commerce affair. Remember in the past, for example, I was here, you were asking me about Anchor borrowers. When Anchor borrowers was done, it was done with good intention. But at the end of the day, a lot of people who do not mean well for government or the agricultural sector itself hijacked it, took the money, and never went into agriculture. So this time around, we are working with the states and all other actors, the private sectors, and even the Farmers Association, to see who are the Nigerian farmers. How do we get them on board? Because we are tired of a situation where you bring out a program and the next thing is the privileged people come in with all manners of application, take the money,
because
and get
I'm imagining that someone who just finished school and who is hearing there's a possibility that you actually can go into agriculture without having to leave your white-collar jobs.
I give you an example. You know, for the tractorization, for example, we are looking at making it possible for young Nigerians to have access to managing the mechanization service center, where they can form themselves into a cluster of companies, and then they will be given opportunity to have access to these things. Now, all of these things, as we are saying it, is not something, like I said, it's not cake. You just put it in 2-3 minutes, you turn, and then it's ready, you give it to people. No, there's a lot of work being done right now. And I want to say that we are saying it with all manners of sincerity because always, whenever these things are discussed, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will ask, how are Nigerians going to benefit? the ordinary Nigerians out there, which is what you are asking. And that explains why we have to do a lot of work, ensure that we have a foolproof plan, so that at the end of the day, we'll know who the target beneficiaries are, and we'll guide them in terms of how they can assess.
So, the Brazil deals, when are we likely to see them start to be meaningfully played out in the economy and fiscally?
Well, here we go again. We've just come back, and just this evening, we had a review meeting where we've looked at all of these things. And we are drawing up an action plan over the next 5 years, for the next 5 years, to see how we are going to ensure that everything we have signed as MOU between Nigeria and Brazil is going to be fully implemented. And that is now in the works. You see, these are all showing that, yes, government means business. It's no longer business as usual. And like you have said earlier, what are the lessons to be learned? And there are a lot of lessons to be learned. Right. And let me say this to you. There was a time in the past when similar thing was done. And after we came back, nothing was done. But the difference now is that we have had a post-review meeting to showcase the fact that there's a difference. Yeah. Now we are looking at tracking all the agreements, who is doing what. And by the way, while it is not within my remit, just today, I understand the Minister of Aviation, they're already doing the groundbreaking for one of the agreements in terms of the Embraer group coming into
the airline maker, the Brazilian based airline.
They are going to have their presence here. So I mean, those are the kind of business we're talking about.
Let me ask you quickly, Minister. Are we still importing rice? Because that effort to hit the high price, the spike, are we still importing rice officially?
Not at all.
Nigeria is no longer importing rice. Are we importing any kind of grain?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Because there are those who will be worried that, and the farmers who are saying that the importation and these imported rice and some of these grains are impacting on local production.
This is simple. This is economics. And I will say this to you. The challenge for every government, when you want to balance what your food security objectives are, you will face this. Because what is food security? Availability of food, accessibility of food, affordability of food, and then the right nutritional contents on a continuous basis. Now, what does this translate into? If food is available and is accessible, but it's not affordable, there will be outcry. And right now, what has happened that you are talking about is because a lot of Nigerians were finding it difficult to meet the kind of food they want because the prices of food have gone up. That was what we experienced some months back, isn't it? When we are crying about food, inflation. Now, at the end of the day, what are we saying? We want the price to come down. When the price comes down, it means the farmer is not going to get the kind of profit he's making. If he's not even careful, he could lose. So this is where government comes in.
But have we crossed that line of our crisis in food security? Are we out of the woods?
Well, I won't say we are completely out of the woods, but there is substantial improvement. And when I mean substantial improvement, we have seen a drop in the prices. But you see, affordability is not driven by only the supply. Remember, we are living in an economy, and there are a lot of things out there that will also impact on capacity of people to be able to afford food.
All right. Give me a moment, Minister. We go on a break, but I will show Nigerians the prices of this food. Yes, a lot of them have crashed compared to, I'll take you back to 2023, 2024, where things spiked, and now the prices that have eased up. We'll be right back after this break, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. At the home stretch now, a conversation with the Minister of State for Agric, Senator Shabi Abdullahi, with us on the program. Thanks so much, Senator. We're having issues because at some point our storage was being said to be depleted. Now, are we okay now, fairly? Would you say we are okay?
Well,
we are not out of the woods, but we are okay. Yeah, but we are not still sufficient. Well, we can't say we are sufficient.
Yeah, of course, when you say sufficiency is a matter of determining what you have on ground. In terms of availability of food in the country, I think we are not doing bad.
But the affordability is still not there.
And this is a function of so many things in terms of the economy. Like I said, it's beyond the question of the agricultural sector. Because how people make money to be able to come and buy food is not dependent on the agricultural sector. It's dependent on the entire macroeconomy.
By this time last year, when the president said we are declared state of emergency on food insecurity, we are not in the same level.
No, we are not in the same level. Definitely there is substantial.
Have we been able to store up?
Yeah, we are in the process.
But we don't still have as much in storage.
Well, if you say as much, you know, the question of what you have in your storage is a matter of national security. Because it's strategic. It's national food reserve. So it's not always good for you to come out and say, oh, this is, because it has its own implication also. So,
but how long do you think it will take us for us to be sufficient? To be able to say, we do not, even for rice, for example.
It is a function of if we are able to get our production system transformed, just like the Vice President was trying to describe.
But I thought that your government has a plan.
Yeah, we have
when
a plan.
We could say that we can beat our chest and say we're not reliant on any importation of our major staple foods.
We are looking at a 5-year trajectory now.
Okay.
Based on the development plan, where we are able to transform our agricultural system. Remember, we have this program, Green Imperative Project with Brazil, which is designed to reduce production cost. Because one of the things we have not been talking about is how much are farmers spending when they produce per hectare. Now, it is always high. And so you have to help farmers to reduce that cost. Okay? And when they do, then it will translate into lower cost also by the time their produce gets to the market.
Minister, let's close the program on this note. I'd like to show our viewers the picture of some of the commodity and their prices. When President Bola Tinubu, the month he got into office, in May 2023, what are the prices? This time last year, what are the prices? Things spiked and were so bad. And now, what are they? So if you look at them, the ones in the red was in 2023, May 2023, where rice was 35,000. In September of 2024, it went as high as 96,000. Averagely, the price of rice, 50 kg, is about 70,000. You look at brown beans, 50 kg, 30,000 naira. As of May 2023, when President Bola Tinubu got into office, it went as high as 137,000 naira, about 6 or 7 times more. It's gone down to 65,000 naira, brown rice, averagely. Palm oil, things have not really shaped up. It's still not better. From 29,000 to 52,000, it's even more expensive now, 65,000. I don't know what the reason would be. 50 kg of flour, 29,000 to 63,000, is higher now at 65,000. Cement, 4,000 to 9,000 to 11,000, it's more expensive. Crate of eggs went from 4,000 to 6,000 last year and 6,000 now. A loaf of bread from 1,000, it doubled to 2,000, it still retained that price. Minister, do we see these prices going down more? Let's close.
That's exactly what we are hoping to achieve in terms of what? Some of these things, there are also artificial, bad behavior in the market, where some people are actually creating that situation where this is happening. For example, when you look at, our marketers, when they are transporting agricultural produce, we have done a study and we have seen that sometimes they even spend far more than what they are carrying by the time they get to their destination, which means they will pass all these costs also to the market. And so I believe
better days are ahead.
Better days are ahead in terms of the bouquet of policy actions that we are making, and we believe that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's vision of a country where no one goes to bed hungry is possible.
Shabi Abdullahi is the Minister of State for Agriculture. Thanks so much indeed for your time.
Thank you very much.
That's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimaloe. God bless Nigeria.